So happy birthday to both of you guys. Tarina Perry celebrated a birthday. Wayne Hilson celebrated a birthday. That's Dr. Wayne Hilson to you guys. Dr. Wayne Hilson celebrated a birthday as well. So I want to make sure I say happy birthday to Dr. Wayne Hilson. All right, so it's halfway point of the show. Let me get into the question of the day right quick, and then we're going to get to why all of that stuff matters, where you're at and all that stuff, and where you're supposed to go from here. So the question of the day, it comes from Kevin. Great name, so he must be a great guy, and he's out of Florida. So basically, Kevin wanted to know, how does your work history impact your mortgage application and being approved for a home? So just to give you a little background. First of all, Kevin contacted me via Facebook. So my page on Facebook, 800 Credit Score Man, please get there, like it. Like the page. If you got questions, you can send me questions there. You can always hit me up, follow me on Twitter at @creditscore_man. But on Instagram, I'm 800 Credit Score Man. And then again, of course, on Facebook, you can catch me there. And you can always email me your questions. 800, that's 800, at creditscoreman.com. Or you can even go to my website, www.creditscoreman.com. You can go to that website and hit the button and say, hey, you want to talk to me, you want to work with me, what have you, you can go there as well, www.creditscoreman.com. Okay, so Kevin said, he wanted to know, how does your work history impact your mortgage application? And so basically, Kevin has been a stay-at-home dad for the last few years. So a big ups to you. That's a blessing to be able to do it in the first place, and a blessing to deal with kids for the years that you did. And so now he's back in the workforce. So he's back in the workforce, and he wants to know, he's been back in the workforce for a few months, and he wants to know, how is this going to impact his chances on being approved for a mortgage. So I did a whole show, an entire show about the mortgage application process. This particular thing I did not address in that show, but if you have questions about how does the process work when it comes to getting a mortgage, I break down everything for you in that particular show. Go back, find that show, listen to that show about the mortgages. So what I did for Kevin was, I reached out to who I consider is the mortgage guru, and that's Barry the Loan Arranger Johnson. I reached out to him and I asked him the question. I had said, guys got a short work history. How is that going to impact his score? Now, Barry told me that he was able to get someone in the same or similar situation approved for a mortgage just a few months ago. So it's absolutely possible, Kevin, that you can be approved. Here's what I think you need to make sure is going to be documented and help your process go along a little faster. You need to make sure that you have a documented history of your current salary, so that should be easy. Got the W-2s, got your your statements every week or every other week, so you should have that, and then your previous history as well. So you need to see from how many every years ago you've been out of the workforce. If you have something back from then as well, I'm sure a W-2 would do fine. Your taxes or whatever. So be able to document that. If you're in the same industry, if you re-entered the sales force, if you re-entered the workforce in the same industry as you did before, that actually works in your favor as well. So that may be something you want to look at as well. You have those things if you had the same industry again, and then of course credit score. So if your credit score is good or better than good, if it's sitting in excellent, then sometimes, like I say, just because you have a good credit score, you might get a quote-unquote break. They may not push you so hard to document every single thing if you have a good credit score, because it shows your credit worthiness, it shows your responsibility and all of those things, how responsible you are. So that'll work in your favor as well. So I'm going to suggest, Kevin, that you go back and you listen to that show that I did about the mortgage process. And again, you can contact me anytime. Contact me 800 at creditscoreman.com, or Kevin, we already got our stream going on Facebook, so 800 Credit Score Man on Facebook. You guys can contact me there as well. Kevin, you are officially a part of the 800 Credit Score Man Show family. Thank you so very much, and I encourage you all, send your questions. If you got show questions about the show, if you got questions about your credit, if you have suggestions for the show, then please send me your suggestions, whether it's a topic, whether it's something you want me to start doing, whether it's something you want me to stop doing, whether it's something you want me to do again that I used to do, whatever it is, please send me your comments. I'd truly, truly appreciate you taking the time to do so. So, all right, so let's jump into the last part of the show. So now I did my whole soliloquy and told you guys where you sit. If you're in Mississippi, what your credit score is like. If you're in the Midwest, what your score is like. All of those things and in between. So now let's talk about no matter where your number falls, no matter where it is. If you've got a 490, if you've got a 550, if you've got a 730, no matter where your number falls, how do you get to the next level? What do you need to do to bust through and get to the next level? Ironically, or frankly, it is easier to come from 500 and try to get to 700 than it is to go from 700 to 750 or 700 to 800. It's easier. You've got a ways to go when you have a lower number, but there's so many things that you can clean up on your credit report and positive things that you can add to your credit report that will help you increase your score. And typically it can be done in a shorter amount of time than it can for somebody that has a decent credit score and they've kind of been hovering around the same area and they use credit in the same way because that's what they're used to. This is how they're responsible. It's more difficult for them to move those numbers. So if you are in those categories, if you fall on the lower end, you're in the middle rung, then we're going to give you a few things that are going to help you go to the next level. So some general things. Here's some general things. So, if you want more specific things, you got to contact me. You can call me too. 312-600-5855 if you want some more specific things about you and your credit, how we can get it going. You can give me a call on that or email me in all those other places as well. So, generally speaking, you got to pay on time. Duh. Of course, you got to pay on time. If you don't do this, then there's no need to do anything else if you're not going to pay on time. You know, if you miss a payment and it's 30 days late, it can drop 60, 70 points off of your credit score just like that. So because you went and you got something removed off your credit report before, a dispute or from a collection or anything like that, you're going to negate all that progress if you have late payment. So you can't have the attitude that, it's just late, I'm just late one time. It's going to kill your credit score. So pay on time, all right? So everybody knows that. Number 2, take stock of your collections. Now, when I say take stock of your collections, if you have collections, you've got to go through your collections. I don't want you throwing spaghetti at the wall and seeing which one is going to stick. So when you got collections, that doesn't mean you need to take them in order of highest to lowest in terms of how much you owe, or lowest to highest and start knocking them out. You need to evaluate them all together. You need help with that, you know who to contact, the 800 Credit Score Man. But generally speaking, here's what I want you to do when you take stock of your collections. And you got to make a plan to address them. So you're going to get your credit report. You're going to look at whatever collections you have. Get all 3 credit reports if you need to. Get all 3 because sometimes a collection will be on Experian, but it won't be on TransUnion and vice versa. So get all of them. And you're saying to me, I can hear you talking now saying, well, Mr. 800 Credit Man, I don't have any money to take care of these particular collections. Doesn't mean didn't say that you necessarily needed money. You may need some money to take care of some of these collections, but sometimes there are other things that you can do to kind of get around some of your collections. So certainly, of course, paying them, you can do some of that, but that's not always necessarily the best way to do it, and it's certainly not the only way to do it. So paying all that you claim or all that they claim that you owe is never the plan. So that's not the plan. So if somebody says you owe them $1,200, you in your mind you should be saying, okay, I owe them $1,200, but I'm definitely able to pay them $700. That's the kind of mindset you need. You're not going to pay anybody everything that you owe when it's already in collections. So if you got collections, first look at how old they are. I need you to look at how old those collections are. You do realize that any negative items come off of your credit report after 7 years. You hear me? After 7 years, any of those negative items come off. So if you've been ignoring this particular collection for 6 years, for 6.5 years, you might want to go ahead and just let that one ride until it falls off. And even though the original creditor places it in collections, let's say the original creditor, whoever that was, they placed it in collections after a year of you not paying them. But this collection has been on your credit report for 5 years, let's say. So it's been on your credit report as a collection for 5 years. You stop paying actually a year before that. That's 6 years. You only have a year to go. So it's not from the date that you see on your collection. You need to also go back into the rest of your accounts and look and see when you stop paying. When do they document that you stop paying, and make sure that that's correct. If you stop paying even earlier than that, the earlier the better for you in this particular situation. So make sure that you evaluate it in those terms. So if you have been having collections for a long time, they're almost 7 years old, then you want to decide on your own if that's somebody you're willing to pay right now or not. If you got other collections that you can and need to take care of, maybe you start doing some of those first before you work on the one that is so old that it might be coming off of your credit report in just a few minutes. Now, also, let me tell you this. If you're still considering paying that collection, even though it's older, I want to tell you this. When you pay the collection, this is like you having communication with them again, and you pay the collection. When you pay the collection, you pay it off, and now it's zero. If you don't get them to agree to remove it from your credit report, your 7 years of it staying on your credit report starts all over again from the day that you pay. So because you pay a collection doesn't mean that it comes off your credit report. So you pay the collection does not help your credit score, and it's not coming off your credit report. As a matter of fact, it's going to stay there another 7 years. So in our previous example, had it been on your credit for 6 years, and then now you decide to pay it, and now it's going to have been on your credit report for 13 years, 6 plus 7. It's going to be on your credit report for 13 years in total, because the day that you paid it, it's going to stay on your credit report for another 7 years. So you want to make sure that you get them to remove it at the same time. When you call and make that negotiation and say, okay, I'm going to pay you, I owe you $1,200, but you decided you're going to take $800-900 from me, I also need you to remove it from my credit report. They're going to say, yes, we can do it. Some places, the majority of places can actually do it with the click of a button. Some places can't or won't because it's just against their policy, and they won't do it. Then you have that chance to also evaluate, how does this impact me? A lot of my clients are looking to move in a home soon, so they need a mortgage. If you got collections, it's difficult for you to be approved for a mortgage, generally speaking. So if it is difficult for you to do that, you may want to go ahead and pay it anyway. But that's why you need a personal evaluation to see what your position should be when it comes to that. So it'll show, back to this collection, once you pay it, it'll show zero balance, which is good for you in the long run, and generally speaking. But it will not come off your credit report unless they agree to take it off, and it's going to stay on your credit report yet another 7 years. So you make sure that you evaluate that particular situation wholly on what's going to go on with your credit and your credit score. So now that you know how old they are, now that you know how old your collections are, you've evaluated which ones you're going to mess with, which ones you're not going to mess with. Now start with any medical collections. If you got medical collections, they work in your score's favor once they're paid. They're similar but different than a regular collection. So if you've got those collections and they're medical in nature, then you want to start with those, because once you pay those off, and even if they don't remove it from your credit report, it's no longer going to be held against you when it comes to your score. So that's going to help you. So you got medical collections, you want to start there with them. Now, if it was at a collection agency and they're helping you out, oftentimes, since they work a little differently, they don't like to give you 50, 60, 70% off of whatever you owe them. But a very well-known medical collection place is really good about giving you 20% off the top right away without too much fuss, without too much muss. So count on at least 20% coming off of that, or at least ask for 25, 30% off of your bill that